to this video that is intended to help train our advocates across the country who have agreed to serve as intake coordinators. I hope this will be educational for you and assist you in your work. Our goal here is to educate you on how to perform an intake. We need you to learn how to listen, and by listening, how to help. Our goals are the listening techniques, how to give comfort and assistance to someone who needs it, the importance of collecting data, and the ultimate importance of connecting victims to resources, including yourself. So let's get started. Learning to listen may be the most important skill any of us have as human beings. When we listen, we empathize. And when we empathize, we're in a position to give of our own energy and talents. But when we listen, we also may be exposed to some very raw emotions. And I'd like you to be able to recognize and accept the emotions of victims, which are sometimes very raw, very severe. On the interactions you have with victims, which are usually on the basis of phone calls, you will hear people at their worst. They are drawn out, they are worn out, they are just in a terrible spot, and you will be the brunt of that for a short time. But I find that just by listening and letting people vent their emotions just for a couple of minutes, we can open the door to helping them. And one of the ways to help them is to tell them that they're not alone. When this situation happened to my family, we thought that we were the only people on earth that could possibly be experiencing this craziness. Of course, we were wrong. And I find that by telling someone, you're not alone, there are a bunch of us out here, and we're here to help you. It opens the door, allows their emotions to evaporate into a more rational discussion. So one of the first questions I ask is, how did this all start? What happened? Who are the people involved? Why did this take place? Is it about money? Is it about power? Or was it all a big mistake? Or did you begin this thinking that it was the right thing to do? In asking this question, you're going to be able to identify all of the players in the scenario, from family members to neighbors to agencies, and of course, the various court insiders, the lawyers, guardians, and judges. It's important to identify them, as well as to identify the case ID number, the status of the current case. Sometimes I get calls from people who have not yet been adjudicated as incapacitated. And there's a great big opportunity to intervene at that moment. We need to know how long has the case been going on, because cases that are 4, 5, 6 years old, very, very difficult to intervene. Importantly, it's important to ask, what is the status of the ward? Is the ward locked up somewhere? What is their health? Are they eating? Are they drugged? Are they over-medicated? Do they have a feeding tube? All of these questions paint a picture of the case, and it's that picture that allows us to react and act. Lastly, on the intake, you need to identify the ask. In other words, ask the victim or the family member that you're talking to, what would you like our group to do for you? Be very, very specific and insist on a simple answer. The answer could be, I need a referral to an expert on accounting. I need a forensic accountant. Well, we can certainly help with that. But if the answer is, I just need help, your job is to refine that answer further. And you can ask, what do you think might be most helpful? for us to help you with. The idea here is that when we are involved in this intake process, we want to make sure that we have something to offer and that that something will be relevant and what is needed. In order to do that, you have to learn how to leverage an intake, and that's why we've created the AAPG intake report, which is a comprehensive list of abuses during guardianship for you to use first as a working document and later as a data collection instrument. So you can click on this intake report link and it will take you to that report. And if you need additional information or more resources, please let us know. You will learn over time, and you won't get this the first time, how to assess emotional and practical resilience. If somebody calls you and they can't stop crying, or they can't stop repeating over and over again how awful things are, it may not be possible for them to be your partner in advocacy. You're going to have to learn through experience, I'm afraid, who will be able to work with you and who won't. You're also going to have to learn what opportunities for advocacy actually exist. For example, in states like Florida, Michigan, California, and others, there are lots of advocates, and there's media, and there are opportunities to trail behind what's been done before, kind of as drafting in a car race. And in other states like Utah or Wyoming or South Carolina, there aren't that many resources available. And what are those resources? Well, of course, family and friends, people of the legal community who might be willing to help, a compliant and cooperative media, which you need to cultivate in your area, and ultimately money. I mean, let's be honest, it takes money to fight these things. And if there is no money to support an effort of advocacy, things are not impossible, but made much more difficult. All of these issues will be learned over time by an intake coordinator. Once you've done all that work, there are things that you can suggest. For example, in Florida, there's an agency called the OPPG, the Office of Public-Private Guardians, and their job is to ride roughshod over guardians. No matter how well or how badly they do it, it is their job. Other agencies like DCF, like law enforcement, for example, who job it is to take reports, and often they're very reluctant to take reports of guardianship abuse. Other resources, other advocates in your area, and local media can all be used as referrals to help publicize a case and to help prosecute. Okay, and prosecute, I should say, it's not a terrible thing. It means to process what you are suggesting to the victim in need of assistance. There are other interventions like the Niagara document, which is a way to contact the judge legally. Niagara stands for the National Independence Adult Guardianship Review and Advisory Board. Sometimes just contacting the judge directly by email as an advocate can make a difference in a case. We can also use the intake report as a document to present to law enforcement for their intake of a case. And law enforcement ultimately, whether it's state's attorneys or attorney generals or sheriffs or police officers, are a critically important cog in the wheel of trying to bring advocacy to victims. While we're at it, you should suggest that the victim join our mailing list. That can be done right on our website. And that's important because we need to grow our numbers as much as possible to convince the establishment that we mean business and that we are a serious organization supported by thousands. I will emphasize lastly, it's important to do follow through. As an intake coordinator, you can't just start the process, you've got to see it all the way through, no matter what the ending is. Sadly, unfortunately, the endings are often unhappy. But by following it through, you will then be able to network with local resources, other advocates, and victims, and that is an empowering opportunity as well. I hope you've learned from this video. I'm happy that I was able to share it with you. And if you have any questions, I think it would be very appropriate to send them in by email to drsam@AAAPG.net. And I thank you very much for watching this video and for volunteering to be an intake coordinator.